short, Evan and I are looking at how the Spain pick and roll is played and defended against in the NBA. It's a super interesting wrinkle, is one of the most popular play types among writers and analysts. People love it for a reason, and teams like it a lot. And so, Evan, first thing I want to ask you, what is the main draw of running the Spain pick and roll for a team? What are you looking to attack typically?
So I went and listened to Sergio Scariolo, who is the head coach of the Spanish national team. He talked about this on Basketball Immersion. The value of it is it's a pick and roll, which is one of the most common actions. And then you insert a back screen into it, which adds so much chaos. So he said, at the end of the day, if you guard the ball and you're able to go over it and the first ball screen in a great way, offensively, you're in trouble. But you add a third guy to it, and then suddenly openings pop up because you can start to play off of that. So the appeal of Spain/stack pick and roll, as it's sometimes also known, is there are so many different things you can do with it. You can run it out of the side. You can run it, I don't want to spoil the ending here, but as a 4-man action instead of just a 3-man action. And depending on your personnel, as you'll see throughout this video, there are so many different wrinkles.
Okay, and so what's the main thing you're trying to do? What do you think is the most common way that the Spain pick and roll, when successful, what's the most common end for the offense?
So the offense is ideally trying to get a three or a dunk, right? Because the Maury ballification of the NBA, you are either going to end up with the back screen hitting the big, and so that leaves the roller a wide open lane, or if your roller is a vertical threat, a lob. And if they don't communicate well, then that back screener is most often a shooter, and then he's coming open, nails a triple.
Perfect. Okay, so now that we know what teams are trying to do typically, what is the best way to stop it? Well, not best, but what have we learned that are some ways that teams stop it?
Right. So I went and watched about 150 possessions of this. I don't know how many exactly are going to make this video. I'll try and plug in as much as possible, but this is what framed my research. Jenny Boucek, who is she's an assistant coach for the Dallas Mavericks. She said on the podcast Slapping Glass, quote, almost every team is guarding that one of two ways, and mostly one way, which is they're dropping the big literally to the charge circle and switching the guards. The only other thing we see a little bit is switching all of it. But by far the most common is to drop the big to the rim and switch guard to guard. So the best team I've seen do this are the Philadelphia 76ers. Mostly because you have the length of Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons and Matisse Thybulle and Danny Green. And you build from that. But Joel Embiid dropping and him being at the rim to deter everything, there's just nothing you can do. So as we go into the clips, in this first clip, you'll see Embiid is recognizing that Spain is coming. So he'll do this little hop so he can get all the way around Paul George, who is the back screener. Danny Green is containing the drive by Reggie Jackson. When Paul George is coming out to the three-point line, Ben Simmons is recovering to him. So that was a switch between Ben and Danny. Now they've contained. And then Embiid and Simmons are so good that they contain the pick and roll right after that. And then, two going the other way. So here, Embiid points out that Spain is coming. Shake Milton contains the drive by Luka, and Tim Hardaway Jr. is shooting out to the wing. Now, Luka jumps to pass this, and Ben Simmons, having the length and ability to read plays as he does, is able to pick this off. And then this one I found a little interesting because the Mavs run a wrinkle that gets them an opening. So you can see Embiid knows Spain is coming. He drops back like usual. But instead of Trey Burke coming out to the same side, Trey Burke leaks, which is a term you'll hear throughout this video. He starts to leak to the opposite wing. So Ben Simmons is now expecting Seth Curry to come up and switch with him to contain Luka's drive. And his job is to go find Trey Burke. But Trey Burke shooting out early, Seth Curry isn't there, Luka gets a wide open triple. He doesn't make it, but the process works. Another one, no Joel Embiid this time. Dwight Howard is the big in play. But no Joel Embiid means you can see what their base is against Spain. Dwight Howard drops deep. Shake chases over so he can rear view contest. If Graham pulls up, Tyrese Maxey contains. Malik Monk has a tough catch and an even tougher shot. And then probably between them and the Mavericks, number 1 and 2 in terms of weaponizing the stack action, the Phoenix Suns. The first one, Cam Johnson leaks very, very early, so Danny Green has to chase. Joel Embiid steps to the ball to try and contain as George Hill is trying to recover back. And Chris Paul is able to get a jumper over outstretched arms. And ultimately, I think Philly lives with that one. This last one from Philly, there's not a whole lot to it. You can see the Spain coming. And then Danny Green just pokes around, gets a pick 6 from Chris Paul, gets a dunk. And then another team who's actually really good at it, depending on personnel, the Lakers are a really good team so long as certain players are getting minutes. So here, Marc Gasol sniffs out Spain pick and roll is coming. He drops all the way back to the charge circle. KCP stops the Halliburton drive, and Schroeder finds Buddy Hield. Rashawn Holmes is shooting like 15% from deep, so they probably would have lived with him banking in this 3.
Big shout out Rashawn Holmes. Also, we'll link it, but Jenny Boucek is fantastic. If you want to know more about her, because she is really great, friend of the podcast, Katie Heindl wrote a fantastic write-up on her last year, and so we'll link that. It's pretty good.
100%. And so that's the end of that drop action.
Do you think that the 76ers, not only with, you talked about Thibault, you talked about Simmons, is there a certain archetype you're looking that kind of massages away the complications of what the Spain pick and roll introduces for the defense? Like, as you say, like Thibault, Green, Simmons, those types of guys. Is that the archetype you're looking for? Or is there like a precedence for smaller guys kind of succeeding defending it? Or do you want guys to kind of eat space, a la Embiid at the rim, wingspans like Simmons and Thibault guarding up top to take away passing lanes and that kind of stuff?
That's the interesting thing about it, because if it was just the Sixers, then I would say not every team can do that. But the truth is, you have to have a big who is able to call out the set to be able to recognize it. Marc Gasol is nowhere near the level that Joel Embiid is at the rim any longer, nor is he as mobile. He's mobile for a big, even at his age, but him being able to point that out and direct traffic, I think that's the key for what you need. Would it be nice to have a Matisse Thybulle type insane amount of blocks in just about 20 minutes? Yeah, of course. But not every team has a Ben Simmons. And Danny Green, Thybulle, Ben Simmons, that's insane. There's a reason teams don't run Spain very often against Philly. But I would say the best way to combat it for most teams is to just have better communication than they have. Because as we're going to see throughout this video, it's not really about not being able to get there. You can get there. You just have to get there that half second faster. And that's what communication buys you. But
early recognition. Totally.
Absolutely. The one scheme you need communication the most for is the other one that Jenny Boucek mentioned, and that's switching everything. So as we take a look at a couple of these, Toronto, they have Norman Powell on ball, Stanley Johnson on the big, and then Fred VanVleet guarding the back screener. LaMelo gets this screen, and Stanley switches onto ball. VanVleet points to Norm to get Terry Rozier, and then PJ Washington looks to post up against Fred. But Pascal Siakam scram switches him out of there. And, you live with the result of a contested jump hook. All right, so for Milwaukee, sideline out of bounds play, and then they run some action, and then Spain is going to occur. Now, DiVincenzo is on ball, Giannis is on the screener, and Tucker is on the back screener. Giannis switches on ball. DiVincenzo takes Bridges, who's popping out, and then PJ Tucker takes the big. Charlotte flows into a dribble handoff, which the Bucks also switch. Cody Martin decides, yeah, why not drive at the defensive player of the year, and gets a shot blocked. Now here's an example of switching gone wrong. Bucks Pacers, Lopez looks like he's motioning for Forbes to stay on McConnell as he's dropping. After getting back screened, Brook is gesturing for somebody to go get the screener. Holiday rises up over a super late contest by Middleton. The Bucks are lucky that he didn't make it.
Do you like switch? Is that something, I know based off of this play, like who knows, but is that something that you like to see? Is the hypothetical of the switch intriguing to you?
Yes, 100%. Especially if you have the personnel to do it. Milwaukee, why bother attacking Giannis and PJ Tucker when they can switch that action easily between the two bigs? And DiVincenzo is no slouch defensively either. So if you have the personnel to do it. So with Toronto, the downside of it is that you could end up with a guy like Fred VanVleet at the rim being posted up by a big. But if you have the ability to, as Pascal Siakam did, scram switch your small guard out of there, then yeah, switching everything, it takes a lot of communication, but it can save you a lot of heartache. As for the other coverage, I talked about this in the pod we did Suns Knicks. Keep everybody connected, keep everybody home. That's a great way to do it. Toronto here against Minnesota, the player guarding the ball stays connected over a soft Karl-Anthony Towns screen. Johnson gets back screened, but drops to meet Cat at the rim. VanVleet has to tag Towns on the roll, but again, Pascal Siakam comes out of the corner to block Malik Beasley's shot. That's nice to have. The Oklahoma City Thunder on this one, Ty Jerome on ball, Isaiah Roby on the screener, Lou Dort on Rodney Hood. Jerome stays connected, Roby gets back screened, but manages to stick on Gillespie. Dort contains, deflects the lob, and then Roby corrals. And then the Dallas Mavericks v. Dylan Brooks, the Doberman defender. He's hounding Luka the whole way up the court. Jonas Valanciunas is dropping. Slow-mo stays attached to Porzingis. Grayson Allen is then going to pick off this cross-court pass, and then Ja Morant gets a dunk the other way. I went and asked Caitlin Cooper, friend of the podcast, how Indiana defends Spain pick and roll, and she referred me to an early game in the season against the Suns. Malcolm Brogdon is going to go over the screen. Turner drops all the way back, and Holiday stays on the back screener. Doug McDermott comes over to tag the roller, and Devin Booker hits Bridges in the corner. This next one you'll see almost the exact same thing, except Sabonis is on Jay Crowder. There's a tiny seam, but Devin Booker is able to thread that pocket pass through. The defense can't come over and tag the roller because Bridges had just hit that three. And then this last one, it looks like a terrible miscommunication. Miles Turner is going to come up and hedge onto Devin Booker, and Sabonis is left in the middle pointing out he has to defend too. Ball swings to Crowder. Turner recovers back to his man, but because of the Crowder swing, miscommunication, he ends up having to foul Bridges driving to the basket.
And so as a counter to good defense on that, is there something that the players on offense should be looking to do? Do you start as a team as far as like schematically? Do you start to incorporate more players to make things a little bit more complex for the defense, since communication is one of the cruxes of what makes you successful defensively against this action in particular, including more guys to communicate together, operate on a string? Is that a win for the offense?
Absolutely. Yes. To answer your question, involving more people would be better. And I don't want to ruin the ending, but we'll get there. A 4-man Spain pick and roll action. I think you're going to love it. Or, I don't know. You can feel however you want to feel about it. But I like it. But
Good.
First, I wanted to hit on a bunch of weird ones, one-timers. basically stuff I could only get one clip of. So I'm going to pick on Phoenix a little bit because you'll see them just obliterating the league super shortly. So Russell Westbrook is going to get a ball screen here, and Denny Avdija is setting the back screen. This is super effective because it leaves Chris Paul as the last line defender. So Westbrook can just lob it up to Alex Len, dunk. Simple, easy. This next one I really enjoyed because it's weaponizing Giannis and having an empty side Spain pick and roll, which is always great because that means no help is coming. So Chris Middleton is getting a ball screen from Giannis. Drew is setting a well-angled back screen, and Giannis is just going to roll into this open space. So because of all this empty action, Devin Booker is the only one back there, and there's really nothing he can do. This one, I think, might be my favorite because it's very clearly Shake Milton going at Shake Milton time. So Philly only seemed to run this by accident. I spoke to Daniel Olinger, and he said Philly doesn't run a lot of Spain. Actually, Philly doesn't run Spain at all, and that lines up with exactly what I found. This looks like it's just supposed to be a ram screen for Dwight Howard. A ram screen is when a player gets a screen and then sets a screen. So it actually looks like an audible by Shake here. So he sets the back screen so he can spring open for a jumper. Shake Milton time. Cleveland, again, this looks like it's more improv than anything. Darius Garland is going to use the Jarrett Allen screen to get into the lane, and then Colin Sexton doesn't even really set the back screen here. He just springs open, and then Darius Garland throws a great hook pass, and then Sexton hits the triple. Toronto, Lowry, OG, Fred. Zion and Josh Hart stay connected, and then Lonzo is going to contain the drive. Kyle swings to Boucher, who swings it to Fred for an open triple. And then a couple of weird ones. Miami ran this one with two bigs, but they completely emptied out the right side of the floor by having Kendrick Nunn come through. So the tag is gone. Olynyk is a pick and pop threat. So Precious gets a lob because everybody is trying to stay connected. I haven't seen Chris Finch run it with Minnesota, but I did see Ryan Saunders run this action a lot for Malik Beasley to get open.
And they've lost Rozier 3 times.
Wow, look at that. Hornets 18 points in the paint and 1 LaMelo Ball three-pointer.
Has had very little time to actually unwind here at home. Of course, the entire league playing a very frenetic pace. Beasley, their starting 5 back on the floor as Naz Reid checks out. Beasley, Wolves need it in the worst way.
Opportunities in transition if you get downhill.
Rubio didn't want to shoot at Beasley. He's got
Mark Jackson, former Timberwolf Mark Jackson. Remember Tim Perry? He coached a lot of really great college players.
And also a random play here for Jalen Noel.
Sixers with the lead going to the fourth.
And another weird quirk here is that Tibbs only seems interested in running Spain pick and roll for Derrick Rose.
Rose looking. Rose drives off the glass. Tie game. 17 points for Derrick Rose.
To do that, tweet your answer to hashtag Cadillac Trivia. So Williamson back in. Derrick Rose in the game.
Well, obviously a lot of talk over the last couple of days about closing out ball games, and today Danilo Gallinari, who of course...
And then he runs it one time for Emmanuel quickly. Gets the screen from Taj Gibson, Alec Burke back screens, and then he springs open for a 3. And for this one, I wanted to kind of showcase this Rose Tibbs ATO special. They run this action quite a bit. Rose is going to set a pin down. Julius Randle is coming off so he can get inbounded the ball. Rose is going to back screen the inbounder. So it's a side, out of bounds, rip, which is that back screen, screen the screener, handoff into Spain. A lot of stuff happening. So the Jazz ran it against the Knicks. Austin Rivers tries to contain the Donovan Mitchell drive, point switch for Alfred Payton to take Mike Conley. Rivers gets bumped and Donovan gets a floater. And then they ran it twice against Philly. First time, they countered Philly's coverage that we talked about earlier by showing Spain. As Embiid starts to drop back, Ingles leaks out to the opposite wing. No one communicates. Ben is expecting a switch, and then Donovan is able to walk into an open 3. And the second time, no Embiid, but still the same action. Milton has to stay connected to Ingles leaking opposite. But Mike Scott is no Joel Embiid, so Donovan Mitchell can go into the lane for a floater. So for Charlotte, when the ball is in LaMelo's hands, his ability to change up the timing compared to what is normal when making these passes is just really tough to stop. There's not a whole lot to say. It's just LaMelo doing his thing. And then every now and then they'll run one for Gordon Hayward.
That's the one thing that I always look at with young players. Are they rushed?
Yeah, it doesn't look hurried. No ear. Doncic has not come out of the locker room here in the second half. LaMelo. Final minute of the second quarter. LaMelo. Wrapper up pass to Rozier. Oh, yeah! Relentless.
Keeping that confidence where it needs to be.
Gordon!
And for Sacramento, I'll talk about them a little more later, but they use the gravity of Buddy Hield to generate openings.
Opportunity to maybe get a couple very needed days of practice.
Yeah, we talked about it in the pregame show, Katie, and that's a good point. They can come by Bagley. Fox downhill. And it's
For Jackson Hayes, good reps for him early. He's got 5. He had that putback dunk. It goes in. Holmes.
So Indiana is going to run here straight up DHO, and then Sabonis is going to get a back screen. You can tell this was early in the season because that's Victor Oladipo. But Indiana is actually a team that I really enjoy because they mask their Spain pick and roll action and just couple it with a whole bunch of stuff. One of the things that they love to do is over action. And what that basically is it's Iverson action. It's that cut across, but I only really call it an Iverson cut when there are 2 players on the elbows. So over action is what you're seeing Doug McDermott do here, where he just, it's like an Iverson cut, and then right into Spain, and then it's going to flow into triangle action. Sabonis is going to get a post up. So here it's going to be over action, and then Spain, and then Sabonis is going to get a layup. It's just masking this type of action makes it all the more deadly because you might have a coverage against Spain, but how are you going to defend that over action or that Iverson action? How are you going to defend what comes after? Especially on this one, they run what's basically a side Spain, and Caitlin Cooper talked about this on her podcast. It's pitch back, side Spain. They stop it, then it flows into a give and go between McDermott and Sabonis. Like, there's nothing you can do there.
2, more importantly, they hit 7 of 12 from 3, and for the first time since the first quarter, tied. But that.
Do you typically like bigger guys involved in it more often or smaller players offensively?
If you have a shooter, that just makes it impossible. The Mavericks played the Lakers, and the Lakers were able to shut down a lot of the Lakers are a great defensive team. They were able to shut down a lot of the action that Dallas was running. But now you add JJ Redick as the back screener. It doesn't really matter if Dwight Powell, Maxi Kleber, if they are dangerous rollers, because you have to stay connected to JJ, because if he comes on court, he gets a 3. Here we see Luka get swarmed by Andre Drummond as he jumps in the air. But Ben McLemore has to make a choice. Does he stay connected onto Powell, or does he chase JJ Redick? You don't want to give a 3 up to JJ Redick. So Luka makes this insane hanging in the air overhead pass to Powell. So that's the power of shooting.
Do you expect at some point because the thing is, like, after Spain runs, you're getting the defense in motion a lot of times, at least to some degree. Do you think that it could start to become a lot more prolific as just a straight up primary action that people are running to get into secondary stuff? Like there's a ton of options to go into pick and roll, dribble handoffs, all that kind of stuff, offshoots of the Spain pick and roll. And there's a lot of offense to come from second side action after that initial Spain action. Do you expect that to become more prolific in the NBA, or do you think it's kind of sitting at, where it's going to be for the next little while?
Yes, I have no doubt that it could evolve from just a secondary action into a primary action. Shout out to PD Webb. He retweeted this thing of a double Spain pick and roll. And I've seen at the high school level, it wasn't quite a Spain pick and roll, but it was a continuity with a ball screen followed by a back screen much later in the action. So if you can do that just back and forth, eventually you are going to create an opening. Like we have talked about numerous times with Miami, that east to west, side to side pick and roll, nonstop action. Just add a back screen in and they're dead. That's basically what happens. And something else that's becoming sort of an evolution of Spain pick and roll is what you killed me for this last time, but what future friend of the pod, Bowser to Bowser, they have called this action Spain VEER. So what it is it looks like a double drag, and then that first or second screener, it doesn't really matter, becomes the Spain action. But you're coming off of the double drag, and then somebody's coming in to set a back screen on one of the two bigs. There's not a whole lot you can do there.
They're up big. 91-69 as we enter the fourth.
I was looking at a report and it said there's a chance he could be back towards the end of the year. Either way.
Aaron Smith and Ashley Moyer-Gleish. Great look.
Smart. Over the top.
Dallas hosts Washington tomorrow. Halliburton over the out.
That prompted that Thunder timeout just a couple of moments ago. As we approach the 3-minute mark here in the second, there is a three.
His number 9 hangs in the rafters here at State.
And then, as I talked about early in the pod, Dallas and Phoenix, they run it in so many different ways. Luka Doncic and Chris Paul are very different players, obviously, but their vision is unreal. Their ability to disguise what they're going to do and which direction they're going to throw the pass makes it so that I don't know what's going to happen. The defense doesn't know what's going to happen. And chances are most of their teammates don't know what is going to happen. So we're just going to see a clip reel.
A rare slow start for Julius Randle tonight.
As Peyton, 30% three-point shooter. Peyton, first field goal of the night in his 11 minutes. Paul.
He has been an issue for teams in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, their bench has played surprisingly well as DA muscles that.
Hitting him all right?
Not like I would like to.
Craig from the corner. He kicked.
Smart chasing Paul. They double. Ayton throws it back out. Bridges.
Points in the paint, 32-20. They've got an advantage there.
Reggie Bullock's got 3 fouls.
Chicago's shooting the ball well, 64%.
Bulls lost Monday in this lengthy road trip, 116-102. Here's Paul. Dario Saric is in there to grapple with Joel Embiid. Meantime, Chris
Execute that Euro step.
Chris Paul, wow.
Better record against teams over 500 than teams 500 or below.
And Fox looked at him like, you got to move over, man. That was a really bad pass.
Carter looked.
Hitting a big shot, a timely shot for the Bulls.
Yes, got it to scoring early. Chris Paul on.
Under 2 minutes.
Have had success at him is when they've recognized the mismatch and posted that guy up. They haven't done any of that in the second half.
Oh, they lost
play. 20 points in each of these games for turnovers, all points.
Oh, Carter was helped.
Little mini 9-2 run.
And back within single digits. Chris Paul saw the lane, and then at the last.
Hanging around while the Knicks shoot 60% from the field.
Payne has also been instrumental.
Drives, left-handed layup.
When a team substituting in football, you're just trying to get the snap on. Here is Paul.
Team. Season highs 20. career-high 34. Paul.
Booker's effort, Booker's hustle.
Booker gets to the free throw line. That was a
paint advantage. Bulls with a +15 bench advantage tonight. Here is Paul.
2-2 coming off 2 wins against Sacramento.
No James Harden.
John Wall had 28 in yesterday's game.
The basket for him. Luka's done most of the damage on the inside. Nice pass. And it's against all bigs when it comes to having that ability to stretch it.
Wow.
Go down inside and make something happen too.
Surprised to look down and see that he's 2 for 8 in the game tonight.
Ready for that one, Mark. That North Shore is trying to do it for you. They're getting too much pub. We're going to leave them alone. It really does it. It annoys him.
Luka, look away pass. Kleba, catch it.
Good lately. Karl-Anthony really been on a tear scoring the ball.
Coming off a 23-point game Friday against the Cavs.
And the Mavericks can bring this lead to double figures with 4 minutes to play. Brunson.
Walker's got 3 of the first 6 shot attempts for San Antonio.
He likes to shoot.
I'm not sure if that's by design or not, but he's getting them up.
The smaller player that really takes you out your rhythm. You really have to have a balance.
This level, but he's done it, shooting it at 61% of the free throw line.
Robert Williams, he would have given more resistance at the rim there.
Luka looking for Porzingis, cutting for the base.
Agree, but one thing I would look to do if I was Dallas, get the ball out of James Harden's hand, force somebody else to initiate the offense with no other point guard on the floor.
Simply saying the Knicks are back.
Yes.
They're playing very well.
The arrow's pointing up, man.
Yeah, all the way up.
Open 3. Porzingis is out. Rick Carlisle said before the game he's doing exceptionally well. They're just sitting him tonight in an injury management situation because it's a...
They have a lot of guys that knock down that 3 comfortably as offensive players.
They're 7th in percentage, and they're taking the second.
Those teams, I think.
They're low turnover teams. Portland 2nd fewest, Dallas 3rd fewest.
11 a game. Oh, wow.
The patient, too, because that hit the rim once, went back up again.
He's an outstanding big man when it comes to his free throw shooting at nearly 88%. Luka in the... Dallas leading by 11. Excellent start to the game. They want to close out the first quarter well, which they did.
That's just awesome.
Here's Luka.
And that's partly what makes these teams so interesting in these plays. And that's what makes any play great, is that, like, at the high school level, coaches can affect things a lot with extremely intelligent sets and training the kids to run through them and hit the sections of the set at the proper time so they create advantages in sequence with one another. That's great. But in the NBA, interpretation becomes more important because teams are so much better at A, identifying sets, as we talked about really early on, but B, is defending them because they have incredible defenders who are in the NBA. So players like Luka, like Chris Paul, Devin Booker, guys like that, who they have genius interpretations and unique interpretations of how to play, make, and score in those situations. And that's what makes all of this super great, is watching guys who take the template and they kind of bend it and fold it in different ways to find success. And that's what you saw if you went through all the clips of Phoenix and Dallas, and 2 teams that really love the Spain pick and roll, something Evan has talked about quite a bit and something we've touched on in past bouncing around episodes. This is obviously a bit of a departure from that, but we hope that you enjoyed it all the same. I know Evan put heaps and heaps of work into this, and I appreciate him for it because I've learned a ton myself.
Right. And I just want to apologize to the fan bases of Denver, Houston. Houston barely appeared in this video, only as team defense. Portland, I do apologize if there are people out there with Spain pick and roll clips of them or them stopping Spain pick and roll. Let me know. I will do a follow-up video with those clips. I don't know what you want me to do. If you got to the end of this video and you're mad about it, I'm sorry. But yeah, thanks for watching.
Yeah, good place to end. We're sorry.